Audio Unleashed. All right, buddy, you ready to make Dylan Thomas proud?
I don't really know who that is.
You read the poem, "Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light." I kind of feel like that's what we do most days.
Huh, wow.
We're the audio equivalent of that poem. In a way, if you think about it, we're raging against something.
We are.
The machine, the dying of the light, I don't know.
No, the light's not dying. I don't think the light's dying. I think the machine is just, in so many ways, the machine is just becoming more and more prevalent, and especially with this internet thing that you kids use now.
You just shared the opportunities on my Facebook.
The opportunities for stupid are just so out there, and it's just so easy and so lazy to be. Stupid and lazy, and anyway, I'm not ranting yet, but I'm working it up. The energy's building. The energy's at about a level of 3 right now, but it's going to be a 10 pretty soon. I promise.
Okay, I don't know if I've got a 10 in me today, but I got something. And this first subject that we've got for today is not going to get me that worked up, but it's important. We need to talk about it. This is an article that you sent to me from Ars Technica. Music industry's 1990s hard drives, like all HDDs, are dying. The music industry traded tape for hard drives and got a hard-earned lesson. So we're going to dig into that, talk about it, talk about what it means, opine a bit. I think you're probably going to have more insight than I am, but that's usually true of most things. But hey, what do you want to talk about?
I don't know why all these high-end audio systems keep me on their newsletter list, but they do. So it's their fault.
Yeah.
And this came from Hi-Fi Plus, which is an English magazine. And it's a review of the Coherence Systems /ADD Power Sourcer. And it's spelled POWRSORCER, because you have to misspell things because you have to misspell things. Motley Crue either Motley Crue or Motorhead started all that. No, wait, Motorhead spelled correctly. They just put umlauts in the wrong place.
Yeah,
Motley Crue is spelled in. So I think Motley Crue or Def Leppard or Led Zeppelin actually started all that. So it's a rich tradition. However, it's also a rich tradition of people writing audio reviews about products that they don't understand, built by people that don't seem to understand audio or physics.
If this were a video podcast, would you be doing air quotes when you say review?
Well, dictation.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Anyway, we're going to talk about this review, and we're going to talk about this product. And I actually was I'm surprised, because the guy who did this product has designed stuff for Nordost and other people, apparently. And, these are power treatment products, which we've talked about a lot. And this one to me is the most far out there I can ever remember seeing, really. And the way the review was written is so crafty. I mean, this guy should be writing for a politician, not for high-end audio.
Oh, yeah.
Make a lot more money.
Very credulous.
Then what's our next topic of interest?
So I got a text message from our good friend and patron, Daryl Wilkinson, about it's a story in The Verge. It's called "Google is Using AI to Make Fake Podcasts from Your Notes." And I was like, what? So of course, me, being deeply into AI, because I'm so terrified of AI and I always run towards things that I'm afraid of. I went and checked it out, and I used it myself. It's a product called Google Notebook LM, and it uses Google's. It's hard to know what to call this. It's a large language model, but it's a multimodal large language model. We'll explain what that means deeper in the discussion. But basically what you can do is you can feed it a research paper, and not only will that give you a chat bot that will let you interrogate it and sort of be like, okay, what's going on here? Like, what do I need to take away from this? You can ask it very specific questions, but you can also get it to generate a podcast from 2 robotic hosts that try to sound like real people that have a discussion about what you're talking about. And so I actually uploaded a paper written by our friend Dr. Sean Olive about the Harman target curve. And so we're going to listen to a little snippet of that, and we're going to talk about it. And we're also going to put the entire 8 minutes up on our YouTube page so people can listen to the whole thing. We're not going to play the whole thing here. We're not going to help the robots replace us. But anyway, yeah, we're going to dig into it and talk about what it means and what it's like and whether it's any good. After that, we've got to keep our patrons entertained. What are we going to do for patrons this week?
Well, I'm especially excited about this because I am... Let me toot my own horn here. I was the first guy to review desktop video systems. I was the first guy to review THX systems. And now I will be the first guy to, at least on this podcast, review Auracast, which is a, potentially, earth-shattering, groundbreaking, important something, convenient and useful Bluetooth technology, which allows you to, broadcast from one point to, I guess, an unlimited number of Bluetooth devices. And this is coming out as part of the LE audio, low energy audio update to Bluetooth. And it's actually in a few products now. And I got one of the early transmitters and I started doing some testing with it with a couple of Bluetooth speakers and some, the Earfun Air Pro 4 earbuds, which we talked about a couple weeks ago. And I have dug into Auracast, and I have some early stuff to report and some mini concerns that I think, since our Patreon segment is partly more, industry people, they may be very interested in what I have found out about Auracast so far.
I'm very interested as well. Because I'm working on an update to the multi-room wireless speaker guide for Wirecutter as we speak. And I mentioned Auracast in it. Like, is this going to shake stuff up? I don't know. I got to talk to Brent. And so I'm going to be very, very interested in hearing your results. But first, let's talk about hard drives, buddy.
Okay.
You sent this story to me from Ars Technica. The music industry's 1990 hard drives, like all HDDs, are dying. What was the biggest thing that stood out to you about this story?
Well, basically that I never thought about this. I never thought about this. And we talk about things like, obviously, tape, dying after a while. Although, tape, it does die. And... recently, I tried, with Wirecutter playing a bunch of old cassettes, and most of them wouldn't play. Of course, they were haphazardly stored. A lot of the tapes that are stored are still playable, especially if you bake them, so to speak. At least good enough to transfer to digital. I don't know if you want to play them a whole lot because a lot of those old tape formulations flaked. So we kind of assume that digital is around forever. And the problem is we store digital on something, on some kind of physical media, right? Which is usually a hard drive. And the problem is that there's all this music stored on hard drives now, and hard drives are really are basically fancy tape recorders, very sophisticated tape recorders, but it's still a magnetic medium. Apparently what's happening is a lot of the old music archives are starting to become unplayable because they're stored on these old discs that don't work anymore. And you can keep moving your digital stuff over from one format to another. You can, I suppose you could, if you found something on floppy disk, you could probably find a floppy disk reader still and transfer it to your computer and store it on your hard drive, right? But then what happens when that computer dies or that hard drive dies and you have to move it to something else? And maybe you move it to cloud storage, which I assume is a lot more reliable than your own storage because it's all, rated in terms of, redundant array of inexpensive drives. So, they have lots of drives and they're all backed up. So if one of them dies, your music is still backed up if you have it stored on, wherever, or if you're Spotify and you have it stored wherever or wherever. I'm not even sure where this stuff is stored anymore, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, and then there's, the digital distributors as well. So this music's all out there, kind of all over the place. But it seems to me that like this is less of a certain thing than we ever imagined. And it made me start to wonder, well, vinyl records, they wear out. But if you have an old vinyl record from 50, 60, 70 years ago and put it on, that's not completely beat up, and you put it on a current turntable, it still plays fine.
I've got a story about that, actually. So when I got my record player a few months ago, which I've talked about a few times, my dad invited me up to the house to sort of dig through my mama's old record collection, and I found some of my old records, and one of them was my original Star Wars 2 LP score, which I got when I was 5 years old, right? And as you can imagine, a couple of LPs from 1977 owned by a child, they're not in great shape. Yeah. But they're still listenable. And so I put them on to listen to them. And I thought, I'm going to compare them like to my CDs, right? And I don't know why I thought to go to my CDs. I could have just streamed them from Qobuz or Apple Music or whatever. But I have the CD box set that came out in 1993, maybe, that had a lot of bonus content on it, and pulled the CDs down off the shelf and put it in my Oppo and pressed play, and they wouldn't play. So CDs from 1993 had rotted, and this trashed LP from 1977 that is just, it just sounds like, it's mostly surface noise at this point and scratches, but I could still play it and I could still enjoy it. Wow. And the only part where, the noise really overwhelmed this signal was in Princess Leia's theme. But other than that, I could listen to these trashed old LPs. Could not listen to my CDs from 30 years ago. And
let's talk about that a little bit, because CD rot is not, from, rogue bacteria. It's from, CDs are layers, there are two polycarbonate layers with a layer of, what is it, aluminum in there?
Yeah, I think so.
And, and they delaminate. This was a big problem in the early days of Laserdisc, because Laserdiscs were a lot, bigger.
Yep.
And they were two-sided. And so they had, multiple layers of lamination, and they would delaminate, and they would get what was called sparklies, where the whole picture would seem to color with, those like multicolored candy sprinkles?
Yeah.
The whole picture would start to kind of fill with those things. and a lot of Laserdisc, the early Laserdisc didn't last more than a couple of years. I don't know. Oh boy, I don't know anybody who still has a working. Well, no, I know one guy who still has a working Laserdisc player. That would be Lance Braithwaite, the former technical editor of Video Magazine.
I've still got a working Laserdisc player.
Really?
I just don't have it. I don't have it. It's actually in storage. I got an old Pioneer Flipper, but I haven't connected it to. I don't think I've connected it to my AV system since I upgraded to HD. So it's been a while. But yeah, last time I plugged it in, it actually worked.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know if you're if you have any Laserdiscs, if they still play.
I've got quite a few. I've got the original definitive collection, Star Wars. I've got some Kurosawa stuff. I've got Shortcuts. I've got One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I've got the first Criterion King Kong. I've got quite a few Laserdiscs that it's like, who's going to buy them? Right? What are they good for?
Do you have the version of Return of the Jedi where it ends with the Ewok song?
Yeah, this is the pre-TH, the definitive collection. This is the original, the original Laserdisc box set. Yep.
The correct version.
Not the
one where it ends with some generic. It sounds like, me playing congas and some random dude playing a wood flute.
It is full on Yub Nub, baby.
Oh, right. That's just awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I hope they play.
I needed to.
But this does go to show you that there's a lot of, now I'm kind of scared because I have an album I did when I was a kid. And I think I was 20 something, and recorded on an 8-track reel-to-reel, and pretty primitive, but it actually was going to get released by a label in Dallas, and I got sidetracked by my burgeoning advertising career and just kind of never got around to it. But now I'm kind of like, I wonder if it still plays. I think I still have a CD copy. I think it's a CD, burned CD, like a CDR copy. I will be curious to see if I still have some playable version of that.
If those flex at all, I mean, if they bend just the tiniest little bit, they become basically unreadable.
So what's the takeaway for audio?
Well, this paragraph really hit me hard.
You're supposed to say unleashed.
Oh, sorry, unleashed.
Dude. You're going to be hearing from the marketing department.
I am the marketing department.
Oh, I forgot. But what's the takeaway for Audio Unleashed listeners here?
This paragraph hit me hard. Musicians and studios now digging into their archives to remaster tracks often find that drives, even when stored at industry standard temperature and humidity, have failed in some way with no partial recovery option available. There's no bacon tapes. There's no, it's a dud. It is a brick. And so there's a lot of albums, I guess, that just will never be remastered because what's out there is that's it. They have no access to the original stuff, the original stems. They can't remix it. They can't remaster it. They can't do anything to it except for maybe, Taylor Swift it. So
they can pull it off vinyl, and they can pull it into a restoration plugin or whatever, of which we both have, and we have both used, and they can probably kind of fix it with that to some extent, but it won't be the original, and it's just kind of we think of this music as being permanent, and it's kind of not. And maybe, of course, who knows what state, human civilization will be in 100 years. Maybe they'll have better things to care about or more important things to care about. But it just really makes me wonder, like, are there enough, digital storage things out there with copies of Abbey Road or whatever that someone could resurrect it in perfect fidelity in 100 years? I really don't know. Yeah, maybe. And maybe what the next step of AI may be just like feeding it what we have, the best scraps, and telling the AI to re-record it or recreate it or what have you. Yeah.
I guess that would be, I don't know how I feel about that. I feel pretty bad, actually, but that may be our best hope. But, hey, the final subhead of the story says it all. Entropy wins, everything trends toward disorder.
So vinyl, and worst comes to worst, you could actually, someone who's reasonably mechanically competent could actually make themselves a record player that would work kind of okay.
Yeah.
I mean, sound would come out.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
Yeah. Yep.
You could do it in a home. If you were really skilled and had some decent tools, you could build it in a home shop.
I saw a YouTube video not too long ago where somebody actually took and played an LP using a 5-pound note. If you hold the 5-pound note right and put the corner of it into the grooves while the record's spinning, you can actually sit and listen to the music. So,
wow, that's really cool.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah,
put the link in so I can go look at that.
I will. I can send it to you before that. You don't have to wait until the rest of the world sees it, man. I'll send it to you today.
Okay.
So, yeah. All right. You want to take a break, get some water, and come back and talk about what are we talking about again? Oh, yeah. Crazy people.
Yeah. All right. BRB. All right. let's tear into this. Oh, this is audio
Unleashed.
And we are going to talk about a review that I saw that they were unwise enough to send me in Hi-Fi Plus. They all these publications keep me on their mailing list, but maybe they are just like no press is bad press.
I guess.
I mean, we've said, we've lauded some reviews in. Well, we generally are pretty nice to Stereophile. We've lauded some review. We've lauded what is that thing? Part-time audiophile, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Once.
Well, I think you did.
So we try to be fair and everything, but this is like wackadoodle, and I just saw it because it's an AC power line treatment thing, and I see that, and I'm kind of like, and I think I'm kind of on the record as saying that it has not been demonstrated to me in any way that those have an audible effect on the sound, and I've done measurements that suggest they don't. But, I'm still open-minded. And so I started to look at this thing, and it's just in the first paragraph, it's like, these are electronic harmonic resonator devices.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my God. And so this is a black box, right? It's called the Sorcerer Apprentice. Oh, Sorcerer's. Oh, now I get it.
Yeah.
And I guess the company is called either Coherence Systems or Add Power.
Yeah.
Whatever. Or it's the Add Power line from Coherence Systems. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the company is Coherence Systems, and the Add Power is a family of products from that company.
Okay. So I was unaware of this quote unquote technology, and I'm doing air quotes right now, just so you know.
Thank you.
Very dramatic air quotes. And it's like, and so this guy, Bill Steerhout, has been doing these things with this quantum resonant technology, QRT. And he's used it in Nordos products. And Nordos is a well-known cable manufacturer whose speaker cables I actually kind of like because they rely on, whether or not they make a sonic difference, whatever, but they actually do rely on physical principles that actually make sense, or electrical principles that actually make sense. Yeah. So, in other words, they have really, really negligible inductance and capacitance. So, that's good. Cool. Yeah. But apparently this guy sold the QRT technology to Nordost, and he started his own company. And so he's got this thing, and it's the lines from this review, this is by Alan Sircom, right?
Yeah.
I think, who's a big shot at Hi-Fi Plus. And actually, I've met him a couple times. He's a really super ultra nice guy, and I really like him. But this is way out there. I like, I have an old friend who does like some weird, goes to like those rainbow festivals and does this weird, spiritual thing and stuff. And, I still like her.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, so this is kind of like that.
I know people who believe in the healing power of crystals, it's, whatever.
So anyway, Steerhout's connection with QRT also pre-approves Add Power products for dismissals by Audio's many cynics.
I guess that would be us. That's me and you.
Would be us.
Oh, buddy.
The legitimately skeptical, those who might question the concepts underlying these products but are prepared to give them a listen, should read on. And I just always say, hey, look, if some guy comes up to me and says, hey, I can flap my arms and fly from a standing start, I am not cynical when I say, no, you can't. That doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. It's physically impossible. You are not a bird. You do not have hollow bones. You do not have feathers. You weigh a lot.
If you were cynical, you would be like, well, let's go up to the roof and try it out. That's cynical.
Well, no, because then he'd have a jump. It'd be like it would be like Buzz Lightyear, falling with style.
Yeah.
Then he could conceivably, if he's got like some flapper things on his arms, but you cannot take off and fly from a standing start if you're a human being.
What if you're Wile E. Coyote?
Is he a human being?
That is a good point. He is not.
Okay. Checkmate. Anyway, let's go into this thing.
Yeah.
The Sorcerer Apprentice is a harmonic amplifier or resonator, which AdPower claims saturates the power supplies of components with harmonic frequencies like a tuning fork that is said to increase the energy of the audio material. Blah, 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 blah.
The next paragraph is my favorite. He believes the system provides an energy boost to the audio signal level, which may be as great as 10 to 15%, and an acoustic energy increase that ranges from 0.25 to 1 decibel. What the heck does that mean? Like, what? Like, what are you measuring? Like, and what numbers? Like, what? I don't even know how to deconstruct this. It's such nonsense.
Well, okay. Number one, it's, no measurements are provided by the company, and we will provide links to all this stuff. No measurements are provided in the company's webpage. Claims are provided, of course, but no measurements. And we here at Audio
Unleashed
are intolerant of such behavior, such effrontery. And, if you're going to claim something, show the measurements. Show us an audio precision graph or something like that, right? And tell us what you measured. Don't just come up with all these. Oh, it's more decibels. And Dennis, do you realize I'm 0.25 decibels better than you? I mean, that's just as valid a claim as what they're making here. And
I'm reminded of the time, I think I've told this story before, when my wife and I were shopping for computers at Best Buy because I did not have time to build her one. And the salesman was like, oh, you want this one right here because it's got more gigs in it. Yeah. Gigs of what?
So anyway, it sounds to me, and so supposedly this is claimed, and Alan literally cut and pasted this from the company's website. It's based on Fourier's series, and Joseph Fourier is a guy who the Fourier transforms based, invented that and also came up with a lot of the theory behind waves, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things Fourier said was that if you take a sine wave and you add more harmonics of the sine wave, eventually you get a square wave. And as our old pal Lance Braithwaite told me one time when he was talking about white images on a screen and why they interfered with the sound. Well, the sound in the old TV broadcast was on a higher subcarrier, right? Higher frequency above the normal TV. Yeah. And he says, when the TV shows white is, the combination of all video frequencies, right? Or all frequencies of light, I should say, right? It's white light. Same as, white noise is all frequencies of sound. It's basically like a square wave. And a square wave has infinite bandwidth above the fundamental frequency, right? So if you have a 60 hertz square wave, its harmonic content is everything above 60 hertz, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what he's talking about. So it sounds to me like they're adding, this is a harmonic amplifier or resonator. So it's somehow adding extra harmonics of, I guess, the 60 hertz fundamental that's in your AC, or 50 hertz if you're un-American. And so it's adding these extra frequencies, which I guess is trying to make a square wave out of the power.
Yeah, but what's going to happen when that thing hits a switching power supply, though?
Well, here's the point, though. I think what they're thinking is, the RMS value of a sine wave is 0.707, right? So if you have a 1 volt peak sine wave, the RMS, average output is 0.707, right? If you have a square wave, that's 1 volt peak, the RMS value is 1 volt. Okay. So you're getting the full, the maximum possible power. However, you're right. As you hit every power supply is supposed to have things to filter all this stuff out.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, I thought these AC treatment things were supposed to filter out anything but pure AC, but now we're adding stuff. Oh, and that's good too.
Oh, yeah.
So whichever way you want to go, I'm not really sure. But it's bad to have this extra stuff, but now it's good to have this extra stuff. And you're right. So, or if you hit a power transformer that's in an amplifier or whatever, the higher frequency content that they're adding is going to be filtered out largely, right? It can't get past the switching power supply because the switching power supply looks at the incoming voltage and switches it on and off to give the voltage that is required, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, switching power supplies, you can plug them into a 220 volt outlet. You still get whatever your DC voltage is, right? It doesn't go up.
Right.
And so it doesn't work. This won't work at all with switching power supplies, at least not in any way I can figure. And then, once you hit a transformer, well, maybe you get a little extra energy out of the transformer, but the power supply for whatever that thing is, the amp or whatever, was designed based on a sine wave, right? So if you're getting more power out, and now frankly, they're claiming 10 to 15% more power. It's like you have chosen your output devices. You have chosen all of your components in that amplifier, let's say, to work with the amount of power that's, with 27 volts, let's say, that's coming out of a typical amp power supply. You've designed that amp around that. So if you're going to get 10 or 15% more, you could have a problem, all right? But then the guy is claiming, if you go to his website, and this is just the stupid part. Well, did I say the stupid part?
This is the stupid part.
This is one of the stupid parts. I mean, this is just so, it's just so sad that people fall for this. Yeah. So he's talking, it's all this blah, 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 blah. Oh, he starts talking about the Tice clock. Do you remember that thing?
No.
And I don't know. It's a total non sequitur, but he talks about the Tice clock. There was this guy, George Tice. This was back around 1990. He found that plugging his Radio Shack digital clock into an AC outlet made his whole audio system sound better. So he developed his own specially treated clock. Specially treated by putting his logo on it, I guess, and sold it as something that supposedly improved your. And he says in this took the hi-fi world by storm. Well, it did, but it took the hi-fi world by storm in terms of like people just ridiculing it. Magazines and reviewers were astonished by the outrageous claims and found them to be real. No, they didn't. That's just a lie. That is a lie. I mean, there might have been a couple of whack jobs from the Absolute Sound, but they'll fall for anything. So, except for my couple of friends at the Absolute Sound. Hi, guys. Love you. There are two people at the Absolute Sound I really, really like and enjoy reading their reviews. And I think they have their heads screwed on straight, but there's a lot of whack jobs here. Anyway, I shouldn't say whack jobs. People who believe anything. Yeah. But whatever. Anyway.
So, how do you feel about A/B tests of this product?
Man? Oh my God! Well, that's right. What did Alan say? I can't remember.
He said those who want a quick A/B test are in for a long wait between A and B because the Sorcerer Apprentice takes a while to percolate through your system.
Oh, that was
rapid
hilarious.
fire A/B test is changing the crew of the spaceship midway through the countdown, but wanting an A/B test is probably missing the point. Okay. I don't even know how to respond to that. Oh, but he follows that up. Now, here's the weird part. There's something about the sound played with the Sorcerer Apprentice in situ that is like a dopamine hit, or it turns your brain waves from beta to alpha, and you're in musical chillax territory. I'm sorry. If you use the word chillax seriously in a review, you should be kicked out of the club. And he goes on to say, this makes no sense to the yes, but what did it do to the soundstage listener? But the Sorcerer Apprentice seems to act at a deeper level. I mean, I think...
Yes.
Honestly, I'm starting to think that this guy would lump the Inner Detail crowd in with us rather than himself. Like, they're not crazy enough for him.
Wow. But I have to say, though, he really restores credibility here, right? Ooh. Just a couple of paragraphs below where he says, removing the sorcerer apprentice returned the system over the next couple of hours to its more angular, less cohesive, and more relaxing nature. So you pull this power conditioner out of the system, but it doesn't immediately change. The system has to kind of like readjust somehow to a different something or another. Like the effects of the power conditioner, they somehow hang around inside the AC line or something, or inside the components, and it's like a shot of morphine or something. It lasts long. It somehow is stored inside the components, and it takes a while. So that's why you can't A/B this thing, because the effects are.
I don't do morphine.
It takes a while for this to have an effect, and then it takes a while for the effect to go away. And I'll tell you what, I'll give $1,000 to somebody who can explain the electrical engineering behind that.
As Tim mentioned, said, show me how it works and that it works, and we'll have something to talk about. But
the part that we were going to get to that I thought was just so stupid, and this is, I'm sorry, I hate to be trashing people here, but it's like, learn something about your field, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, don't get in a car and start steering it with your feet. It's like, come on, this is just so stupid. But it's like, okay, spectrum analysis shows that audio signal harmonic content increases by as much as 15 to 20%. But wait a minute. So you're adding harmonic content, which is, by the way, distortion.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you add harmonic content. I got fuzz boxes that'll do that are way cheaper than this thing, which is over $3,000. And you can adjust the amount of distortion you want. I mean, maybe it's time for the high-end audio industry to come up with a product that's basically like two Ibanez tube screamers, for stereo. And with just, some knobs on there for, drive and tone and stuff. I mean, seriously, it seems like that's what people want. And if you put a bunch of tubes sticking out of it, then there are people that would say it's a good thing. But the stupidest part is acoustical SN measurements, signal to noise measurements. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, so acoustical signal to noise measurements. So you're measuring the noise with a microphone in front of the speaker, which is not the way you would measure noise in an audio system, because then you're getting all the room noise, right? You're adding the 50 dB SPL room noise or whatever that you have, 40 dB, 50 dB, right? But it's saying it's showing a 0.5 to 1.0 dB or more energy increase. Yeah. Now, a signal to noise ratio doesn't show an energy increase. That's the peak level versus the noise floor, right? So an energy increase would just be a voltage increase, which again, I guess it's possible that you could get, you could somehow coax a little more output voltage from your power supply rails with this thing. I mean, I'm not going to say it's not possible, although it would be incredibly easy to measure with just a cheap voltmeter. And why not just do that measurement and present it on your site if this thing really works, right? Yeah. And you would not, I mean, it's just so stupid. But let's say that it is a signal to noise improvement of 0.5 to 1.0 dB. What would that mean for an amplifier? Nothing, unless it's the worst amplifier ever built. Yeah. I mean, because once you're already at, minus 90, minus 100, minus 110 signal to noise, you can't hear a 1 decibel difference. It would have to be even a really bad tube amp that's really making a ton of noise. It's got, I don't know, a 50 dB signal to noise ratio, which I've never even seen that before, but it could happen. And tape decks, well, let's say tape decks, right? Tape decks could have that, easy. And you've got a 1 dB improvement in signal to noise ratio. That's not audible. I mean, I guess under certain circumstances, maybe if you strained really hard and with just the right material, could you hear an improvement from 50 to 51 dB signal to noise ratio? I'm going to say no. Nobody can hear that.
And it would have to be with headphones. I mean, it would have to be.
Well, yeah, and plus, yeah, because that more or less eliminates your noise floor. But you just couldn't. You know what a decibel is. You do audio production.
Yeah.
I mean, just a decibel increase in level is very subtle, and I mean it's audible depending on where it is, but it's subtle. But to say an improvement in signal to noise ratio of a decibel is somehow significant, and you pay $3,000 something for that. It's like audio reviewers don't. Oh, it's only got two outlets.
Two outlets, yes. $3,300 for two freaking outlets. So you can't even do. So you would basically, this would cover what, your amp and one source device. So if you've got separates, it's maybe your amp and your preamp, but then what happens to your sources? I mean,
well, you can get like a Belkin, AC power strip for $10-15 on Amazon and hook that to it.
Well, so would the effects pass through the Belkin power strip?
I guarantee they would. And you'd have the advantage of it also has surge protection. Yeah. So that'd be good. Surge protection, that's nice. You might, if you get a big spike in your power line because there's a lightning strike, it might protect your gear. So that's a plus, Dennis, not a minus.
Hey man, I've lived in this house since 1999. It's gotten hit by lightning 4 times. So some form of power protection is important in my system. But
yeah, well, sure, but this doesn't provide that.
No,
as far as we know,
that. Yeah.
This adds extra harmonics, which, by the way, are harmonics of the power line, which is 60 hertz, I assume. Otherwise, what harmonics would they'd have to have a different, if you have harmonics, you got to have a fundamental, right?
Yep.
So it's kind of like, all right, well, so it's the harmonics of 60 hertz. And now, are those musically consonant? Those are not, just adding harmonics is not like necessarily a good thing.
But again, it's a square wave, so it's infinite.
Yeah, well, but we don't see, if he actually took an oscilloscope, which, oh my God, that's an esoteric piece of gear. I've got 2 sitting around here, and I barely ever use them. And but the Clio has one built in. I mean, which I use it like once a year. And I've got another one kicking around here somewhere. And it's like, this stuff is cheap. Just put an oscilloscope on it and show us what you're doing with the harmonics. Show us what you're actually doing. If you're doing anything, show how high in level are these, to generate enough harmonics to make something like a square wave would take a lot of juice. Right? Yeah. You're going to have to add a lot of frequencies, and it's going to have to be 120 volts or 240 if you're in Europe, and that's a lot of energy you're going to need to do that. I can't even think of a way that you could. What's the PS? Doesn't PS Audio have a power regenerator that basically is like a 60 hertz oscillator connected to an amplifier that gives you completely, which is if you are into AC line conditioning, well, that's a way to do it. You're generating very, very, very pure power that way. It's like a battery almost. So maybe like Paul McGowan could do something like this in his units if he wanted to, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't want to. And this is just so crazy. And I think that as reviewers, we need to have, Dennis, do you know how old I was when I learned how power supplies work?
Maybe shop. So I'm guessing 15 or 16?
Well, no. It took a lot more years of life to understand these complexities. I was 17.
Nice.
I was in high school electronics class. We built power supplies, our main project. And it's like, the understanding of that I had at age 17 was superior to the understanding, apparently, of this manufacturer and apparently of this reviewer. And it's just very upsetting to me that people just believe in all this magical stuff that's again, if this guy, Bill, whatever his name is, Steyerhout, if he wants to send us scope photos, or not photos, you use a digital scope and screenshot or whatever. Send us scope images that show what this thing, what the AC looks like. Are you really adding harmonics? At what level are you adding them? Now, show us the measurements of the supply rail from an amplifier that's plugged into this thing. And any amp, I don't care. Class A, Class AB, Class D, Class G, Class H. I'm running out of classes.
Well, that's going to get complicated with the multiple rails, though. If you
Anything
get into G and H,
well, true. That's true. That would be a hassle. But so just show us any amp you want, and show us, how you're getting more energy out of the power supply rails and how much exactly. This is I can do this crap so easy. If I had this device, I could give you all these tests in an hour, easy. And publish them. This is not, and I'm just a schmo. I bought all my own test gear. I'm not, some rich guy.
Yeah.
I worked for all my stuff. Anyway, and I needed it. I bought it because I needed it for my job. Anyway, this stuff he's making all these claims. I can confirm or deny every single claim he's making within an hour if he sends me the product. If they wanted to send us this product, which they're not going to.
They're not going to, no.
If they wanted to send us this product, they could. And I will, if these claims are correct, I'd love to be the person who says, hey, I was wrong. This is really cool.
Yeah.
That's news. That this thing doesn't work is not exactly news.
Yeah. That would be a eureka moment.
Not here, not on audio.
Unleashed.
No. So,
buddy, I think we've talked about this crap enough, man. We've given it more words than it deserves. So.
I know, but we got to keep coming back to this stuff because it's like whack-a-mole. We got to keep whacking those moles.
Yep. Well, we've whacked this one enough, man. This mole is dead. I think we have.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break, get some water, and come back and talk about our robot replacements.
All right.
Welcome back. This is Audio Unleashed. Nice. So this time around, we're going to be talking about, as I said in the intro, a story. Well, what kickstarted this was a story sent to us by our friend and patron, Daryl Wilkinson. A lot of people might know Daryl from his years of work with Sound and Vision, but he sent me this story from The Verge called Google is Using AI to Make Fake Podcasts from Your Notes. Mm-hmm. And the story in and of itself is interesting. It's basically just sort of a top-level or high-level introduction to Google Notebook LM from Emma Roth, who covers a lot of this stuff for The Verge. And the LM in that stands for language model. So I don't know how deep you want me to get into this, but basically all of this is sort of Notebook LM is based on Google's Gemini 1.5 Pro, which let's put it this way. If Gemini 1.5 Pro is the professor, then ChatGPT is Gilligan. It is a multimodal language model. And what that means is that it can take an input not just from text, but also from audio, from video, from, even codes, and so it could basically take in information, not exactly the way our brains do, but more comparably to the way our brains do and assimilate information. And what Notebook LM was designed to do in its current purpose is aid in research. So you feed this thing a pile of your research, and then you can chat with it. You can just basically talk to the chatbot and go, okay, you've read this paper now. Let me ask you some questions about it. So the paper that I fed it was a paper that you and I talked about in an old episode of the Soundstage Audiophile podcast. It's a paper by Sean Olive, Todd Welty, and Abid Khansaripur. I hope I'm not mangling that too bad, but Audio Engineering Society Convention Paper 10156, Segmentation of Listeners based on the preferred headphone sound quality profiles. So I fed it this paper because it was just the first thing that I grabbed and I thought it would be interesting, and generated a podcast, an 8-minute podcast based on this paper. And I have to say, I don't think it's going to fool anybody yet. I played it for my wife, just like, hey, I want you to check out this new podcast. And after about 30 seconds, she's like, is this AI?
Really?
It's a little robotic, but I think some people would be fooled by it. And I actually sent it to Dr. Olive and got a text back from him. And he was like, I kind of think this communicates our research better than we do. I mean, he was impressed by it. So I played it for you. What did you think about it?
It was depressing to me because the AI's comprehension of the Harman research was so much better than what you get from, I would say, the majority of reviewers, because, so many reviewers read the Harman research and you're like, well, so you're telling me what I'm supposed to like, right? And just stupid stuff like that. And they don't understand it. Whereas the AI does understand it. And I'm not saying it couldn't make a mistake, but, it doesn't come into this with biases like human reviewers do. And, audio reviewers, you and I included, have egos, and we want to confirm our existing, as much as you and I try to resist this, we do, often try to confirm our existing beliefs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this thing doesn't have those flaws. It also it can't go out to lunch with, the marketing guy from some amplifier company. It can't like or dislike a brand based on who owns it. It can't be swayed by PR people. It can't be swayed by stupid crap on audio forums unless it's stupid enough to go read those forums.
Well, and it can't. That's one of the things about Notebook LM is that basically it can only work on the research that you feed it. Now, I could feed it 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different papers, but it's not going to hallucinate outside of those boundaries. Like one of the other things that I did was fed it a PDF copy of Dr. Toole's book. And I have to say, it was just as impressive as its summary. But do you want to listen to like maybe, 30-second snippet of this so people get a sense of what we're talking about? All right, we're going to play just a little bit, and then we'll comment.
This is audio
unleashed
AI.
Okay, here we go.
Ever notice how your friends' headphones, like the ones they swear by, sound kind of terrible to you?
Yeah, it's one of those things, right? Makes you wonder what's going on.
Totally. And it turns out there's actual research on this. It's not just like brand loyalty or whatever. It's how our ears are wired.
It's true, and it gets pretty fascinating. We're looking at a 2019 paper from the Audio Engineering Society, and they dug deep.
Oh, the AES. Okay, so this is legit audio science, not just someone's opinion.
Absolutely. They really got into how we perceive sound, specifically with headphones. They didn't just study the headphones, they categorized listeners too.
Wait, hold up. You're saying there are scientifically identified types of headphone listeners?
There are. And it all starts with something called the Harman target curve.
Okay, I've heard of that. But to be honest, I'm a little fuzzy on what it actually is.
Well, it's actually pretty simple. Think of it like the ideal sound profile, at least according to most people's ears.
So not like a brand of headphones, but more like a measurement, like how much of each frequency is there in the sound.
Exactly. It's a specific frequency response that research has shown most people find naturally pleasing.
Ah, I get it. So it's like a neutral starting point they use to compare everything else against.
Precisely.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So how did they use this curve to like figure out there are these different listening types?
They had people listen through a bunch of different headphones, right? But the key was measuring how much those headphone sound profiles differed from that neutral target curve.
Gotcha. So some headphones would be closer to the Harman curve, others way off, and they saw how people reacted.
Exactly. And what they found was that people's preferences weren't random. There were definitely patterns in how much they liked to stray or not stray from that baseline.
All right. So as you can see, it's kind of like, well, I won't say who my wife describes it as, but let's just say a very famous politician. And she said, like, it's kind of almost believable as a human being, but not quite. But there's a little bit of stiltedness in their banter, but it's interesting that there's banter at all. And there's playful sort of back and forth between the two, and that one of them will sort of play the role of the ignorant person and the other one will inform them, and they pass that back and forth. I mean, to be honest with you, It kind of sounds like a lot of corporate podcasts,
It
man.
does.
Like if you have a legal team that has to listen to your podcast episode before you're allowed to release it, it probably sounds a lot like this, right? Or it sounds like what is the network of Sinclair TV stations who do, they take control of, the local news for a lot of people. A lot of people don't even know this exists unless you watch John Oliver. But it sounds like a couple of, Sinclair newscasters having a conversation. And more than anything, to me, it just goes to show you how sort of formulaic and robotic the normal sort of corporate safe presentation has become. That's Lauren Dragon, headphone specialist for Wirecutter, and I were talking about this, and she was like, yeah, it just makes me realize how cookie cutter so much corporate content is. And I was like, yep, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I've done this. I mean, I've been hired to like interview. I got one really good gig for, hired to interview some executives at a big company, right? And they were having a company gathering, and I had to, they were doing a company video about something or another, right? So they brought me there to just interview them and get them talking, because a lot of them were not good on camera, and a lot of them were not good public speakers for that matter.
Oh, yeah.
And
Had
my
the media
job,
trained, as we say.
Right. And my job was to be basically this AI sort of, this is like 10, 15 years ago, but my job was basically to do this, to get these people to pull out from them basically what this AI ended up delivering all on its own, to pull out, safe, very slick corporate speak, and keep talking to them until they said the right thing.
Yeah.
And this does this instantaneously. And I got to say, it's not, I start to think about maybe there's uses for this, because like maybe you could, look, AES papers, Audio Engineering Society papers are like notoriously opaque, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, even people like Floyd Toole have told me that they can't necessarily understand what's in some of these papers.
Yeah.
And to just feed, rather than you trying to read it, have it, feed it into this AI, and the AI spits it back to you in a way that maybe you can actually comprehend and get away, and you can listen for 5 minutes, and instead of you spending hours trying to figure out what this paper's talking about, you can get this thing to do it for you.
Well, and furthermore, like let's say that you had loaded this paper and you wanted to understand it better, and you generated this podcast and you listened to it and you still had questions. As long as you're still within the same notebook, or you can actually go back to the same notebook later, you could actually have a conversation with that model now and say, hey, like in the podcast, you were talking about like the people who like more bass. By the way, we're going to upload this to YouTube so you can listen to the whole thing. We're not just going to put that little clip and leave it there. You can watch the whole thing, go to our YouTube channel. But anyway, at one point they sort of, they start saying bass instead of bass, and then they switch back. But let's just say, one point
my mom does that.
Yeah. Oh boy. So let's say you're like a little confused about the people who prefer a Harman target curve, but with more bass, and you have a question about that. You could go back and interrogate it. You can interrogate the same model that generated that conversation and go, tell me more about the people who prefer more bass. You said that they tended to be whatever, trained listeners or whatever. What is the demographic breakdown? And you can have a back and forth conversation with this trained model now. And again, that model is only trained on the information you fed it. You could feed it Sean's paper and Dr. Toole's book, and that probably wouldn't be a good idea, since one's about headphones and one's about speakers in rooms. Or maybe you could feed it both and go, are there any common ground between these two? And it will, all of the training that went into making it capable of generating a two-way conversation between two fake people, you can then go in and interrogate and have a chat conversation with. So for research purposes, I think it's pretty amazing. I'm just worried about, people passing this off as a real thing. I'm worried that, the podcast marketplace, flooded as it already is with just tons of crap, is even going to get so much more flooded that people are going to have a hard time finding, a podcast made by two chuckleheads like me and you, you know?
Well, we have we do have the repartee that you can't yet quite fake with an AI. But you're right that the AI sounds very much like there are a lot of podcasts that kind of sound like that.
Yeah.
The more sort of processed ones where it's like, hi, I'm Joe Blow from some corporation, and this is our blah, blah podcast about whatever. And I have on here, one of my clients,
They're going to have music in the background that's like,
generic music, which we don't have. We have only our own non-AI music that might have people screaming for more AI. I don't know, but who knows?
Yeah. Anyway, any further thoughts about this, everybody?
No, but please vote and tell us whether you would prefer for us to continue the podcast or just switch over to this thing. Let us know.
Yeah. The AI podcast is definitely leashed. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Can't we tell it to be unleashed?
I've tried. It's the leash cannot be broken. So.
Oh, bummer. Somebody will figure that out.
Yeah.
Are we done?
All right, you want to do some credits, buddy?
Yeah, so we're going to have, I will say that we're going to have a new tune with Dennis on drums and me on something.
Yeah,
but it'll be done in time for Dennis's edit of this.
Very cool.
I just spilled the beans. Dennis is editing this.
That's true, and you can tell because Brent went on and on and on.
and it's who is this produced by?
This is a Butterburger production. It's me and you, buddy.
Yes.
Yeah. No stinking AI here.
Yeah.
Anything else? By the way, Stephen Stone is just like blowing up my phone, so I think he really wants to talk to me. But we'll have to call him back after we finish the Patreon segment. Or maybe we can get him on the phone during the Patreon segment.
That'd be funny.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us. We appreciate each and every one of you. Hey, go share this with somebody you think that would like it, and go leave us a comment on this YouTube video that we're doing. We need more people on our YouTube page. So,
yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody, and
thanks.
Patrons. We have another segment for you.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the end. If you liked what you heard and wish there'd been a little bit more of it, we got some good news for you.
Indeed, we do. If you check out patreon.com/Audio Unleashed, all one word, you can get new episodes a little earlier than everybody else.
And sometimes it's like a day or two early. Sometimes it's nearly a week. We never really know until we start editing.
But the big plus is that you get extended cuts of every episode. And usually that's going to mean a whole extra segment that's about maybe a geekier topic or something that's a little more personal to us or something that's just going to really appeal to the hardcore Audio Unleashed listener.
Yeah, what it boils down to is if you're somebody who would support Audio Unleashed on Patreon, we're going to make sure the bonuses to every episode are really aimed straight at your interests.
Yeah, and so if you want to hear these segments, you can subscribe to our Patreon for $3 a month, which is less than I spend every single day on my cup of coffee when I go to Starbucks to write my boring articles.
Yeah. One more time with that URL, that's patreon.com/Audio Unleashed.
Or Audio
Unleashed. Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.